It's interesting because when we talk about censorship, it often seems to only apply to China and Chinese censorship. And of course, there's censorship like in any government, there's censorship. That's in fact, actually, and for the study, I had a chance to talk with Robert Lawrence Kuhn, who was a filmmaker from the US. Oh, he's actually a businessman from the US, but spent a lot of time in China over the last 4 decades and decided to work on a documentary about the process of poverty alleviation. And it was a joint documentary between PBS, the public broadcaster in the US, and then CGTN, public broadcaster in China. And then eventually that got taken off the air and completely censored in the US, because we know that in this no Cold War situation, telling good stories about China and Chinese processes is somehow a threat instead of something that is desirable in terms of bridging understanding. And I think we understand the motivations for that, because there isn't actually, I think, a genuine desire from the West to find that bridging of understanding. But back to the actual study, and I think it was really part of the motivation to do this is we were seeing these processes happening here, but we were seeing how much this was not talked about. And especially from people on the left, they didn't get access to this. And I think it does a great disservice to not be able to learn from great processes, historical processes. And so we went down into Guizhou, which is historically quite a poor province in China, and got to just see some of the experiments and talk to people, talk to party cadre, talk to peasants, women, youth, different people in the countryside and about their experiences. Because over the last 10 years or so, it was the kind of final stage of this eradication of extreme poverty, which has been happening over the many decades. But the sort of economic growth didn't necessarily reach all pockets of such a big country. And so this new sort of campaign under Xi Jinping to go to the kind of farthest reaches of the country and to ensure that every single household was lifted from extreme poverty was this effort called targeted poverty alleviation. And so, yeah, I think I would say there's 3 key things that we found that were really inspiring and interesting. One of them is the capacity to mobilize the party. And the party, of course, is a massive one. It's hard to conceive of, Chinese numbers are so huge, but it's a party of almost 98 million people now. It'd be the 16th most populous country if it was a country. And so there was a large mobilization of the party itself, sending 3 million party members to go and live in the countryside, working with each family. And it was really impressive to see and talk to some of the people. Really challenging work, very, very challenging. Imagine you're away from your home and your family for years at a time, really difficult conditions. So that was a big part of the campaign. And the second part is that it's not just the party on its own to do everything, or even the government alone to do everything. It's how do you mobilize the broader society, the private sector, the intellectuals and the academics, or the students, the teachers to go to the countryside, medical doctors to go to the countryside. There's a broad capacity led by the party, of course, to make sure that all aspects, that this was a top priority for the entire country. And I would say the third part is really, and I think why in Tricontinental we put this as part of our series on socialist construction, is that this is part of the ongoing work of socialist construction. That, of course, eliminating extreme poverty isn't the end goal. It's actually a stepping stone, a minimum program to get to the next stage of socialist development. So we understood by studying the processes more that this is part of a longer historical trajectory, but very much has a socialist character and how it was carried out. And this is the kind of thing, I think, why we haven't seen similar kinds of large and successful anti-poverty campaigns in the capitalist West nations,